gathering information for the ground crews, basically where it is moving, what areas are to the most to the south, and that reason why, there goes that drop, the reason why they are so concerned. And you know what, I'm sorry, it just shows you those high winds. It shows you right there, when he did that drop, that was, you know, probably a couple thousand gallons weighing probably a couple of tons, just basically evaporating in that wind. And that's what these firefighters are dealing with out here this morning, is those high winds, those embers just ripping down that hillside. And it really was a shot that kind of gave an idea what these guys on the ground are dealing with that helicopter trying to do that water drop. Usually we would see that just drop straight down onto a hot spot. In this case, that helicopter the water was basically dissipating, and he was not up high, he was down low. Emerald Bay, that's the road that we're seeing right there. Firefighters from the Orange County Fire Authority and of course other agencies nearby. Laguna Beach fire, those were the first guys on scene. They were probably up here basically putting down that line, getting that structure protection in place, and helping getting some of those residents out of here safely. We haven't heard of any structures. That is huge. That meaning structures being damaged. A lot of protection going on down there, of course. The firefighters basically filling this neighborhood, keeping an eye on where these flames are going. Now, you know, living in Southern California, we all have some sort of brush fire knowledge, you know, basically just from living out here through osmosis, and we know that fire will run up a hillside. We've heard that term, run up a hillside. Right now, we're up on a top of the hill, and winds are pushing it down the hillside. Good and bad. It's going to keep those flames from moving very, very quickly, but those embers are actually going into a neighborhood out here. That's what these firefighters are dealing with. You know, it's amazing that there are no structures damaged or lost at this point. The fire department doing an amazing job. As far as the bulk of the fire, there's still plenty to burn out here. There's a lot of hot spots, but the neighborhood itself, I'm still very hopeful that they're going to be able to say no structures lost when this is done, which probably is going to be tomorrow, if not even later. But right now, these flames really on the west side, that's that shot that's on the top of the screen, are really starting to make their way down that hillside still. Not that huge bulk of fire that we saw earlier on, but definitely too much fire to be contained quickly, and you can see it just kind of making its way slowly directly in its path. We don't see any homes. There are homes as it makes its way closer to Pacific Coast Highway, but just in the time we've been talking, we've seen how quickly that line of fire has moved. It is continuing to move that way. The winds, like we've been saying, 35 miles an hour, maybe even higher down there, and those embers, Tony, you talked about it earlier, can be carried for miles. Miles would put you in the ocean. So right now, these flames, these embers are just running down this hillside, igniting brush, and hopefully not any homes.
All right, I want to remind people, Emerald Bay and Irvine Cove, there is a mandatory evacuation in place. Evacuation warning, though, right now for all of North Laguna Beach. Samada, why don't you jump in and just tell us what the conditions are like right now as far as the weather, the winds, and air quality as well.
Yeah, air quality, of course, you can imagine, is just terrible due to all the smoke billowing around that area. And as far as winds go, you know, that area, overall, Orange County and the Inland Empire under a high wind warning and wind advisories, where we could potentially see wind speeds of up to 15 to 35 miles an hour with those stronger gusts. And at this hour, I did pick up on an observation site near the area, winds coming out of the northeast right around 15 miles an hour with those gusts to 28 miles an hour. But you can see these visuals with those winds driving these embers. It can go downwind for several miles. This is the classic Santa Ana winds that we always worry about year-round, and our firefighters are well aware of our conditions. Not only are we dealing with hot and dry conditions, but the potential for wildfires, and that threat has been elevated due to our sizzling heat, Southern California under a heat wave, and with those strong Santa Anas, potentially any fire that is to ignite can, of course, grow rapidly, be erratic, and we're seeing that unfold at this hour across areas of Emerald Bay in the Laguna Beach area. Winds, we've talked about how the winds can make its own, or at least fire can make its own weather systems. When you're dealing with this type of intense heat, heat rapidly rises cooler air goes in to replace it, and with the two combined, it creates these very erratic wind conditions within the prevailing winds, and that can also drive more embers downwind to very vulnerable areas, possibly igniting a new fire. Again, with these conditions, residents in the area have been told to evacuate. And another reminder, if you've been under that advisory to evacuate, to make sure you plan accordingly and get ready, get set, and go. We always talk about this when there's a brush fire, and during brush fire season, get your prescriptions ready, your paperwork, your family ready to go. The winds, again, continue to push very strong out of the northeast towards the ocean at this hour. We continue to watch the firefighters fighting this fire, and they're doing the best they can. We have one of the best fire teams, fire companies across the nation that deal with this and the potential for this day in and day out. The community is always the forefront, keeping the community safe at all costs.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you should bring that up, because that segues quite nicely into why there probably, at this point at least, not been any property damage. It's because firefighters are, in fact, very prepared for this. They understand that California's fire season pretty much runs year-round these days, particularly given that we are still in the drought. So they are very prepared for situations like this. They understand the conditions, and they know that this is certainly potentially a very devastating situation, and so they do prepare for this, Stu, and that's probably why you're seeing the response that you're seeing so quickly. But they're going to need more help, which is why there has been a call for mutual aid, and why fire departments from around the area are responding, including Los Angeles County.
And Stu, before you give us an update, I just want to let our viewers know all schools at this point in North Laguna are closed. All schools in North Laguna are closed. That is in addition to, obviously, when we said earlier, El Moro Elementary made the first call to cancel classes this morning.
And no surprise there.
Yeah, no surprise there at all. All right, Stu, why don't you give us an update from down below?
Well, we're taking a look right there, Justin, showing some of those the apparatus, the equipment making their way up these communities, these small hillside communities. You know, and this is what we were talking about earlier on. These, you know, this is a modern community out here. These roads are a little bit larger, but it is still a hillside community. They're going to be tight. So you're going to have people evacuating, making their way down that hillside, while firefighters are making their way up that hillside to get those apparatus in place for structure protection. That first line of defense, that one road that we believe is in that shot right there, is going to be the 1400 block of Emerald Bay. Now, that was the actual call this morning around 4:20 that they were talking about, I'm sorry, around 4 o'clock this morning, where they were reporting a fire, a brush fire in the area. And that's where Laguna Beach Fire made their original call or original stand. But the area that was burning, well, that was uphill here, and this is an area that is very rich with chaparral and light flash fuels. And then now adding with the winds, we saw what happened. There was just huge flames just ripping through this hillside, this actually the top of the hillside this morning. Now, the terrain was making that, driving the fire up the hill, while the winds were pushing it back down into that Laguna Emerald Bay neighborhood. Right now, though, we're still hearing no structures been damaged. That is an amazing and fantastic news. And again, this is something that the firefighters are very concerned about. Of course, property values are what firefighters are protecting, but they also don't want to have one start and then have to deal with that the potential of a domino effect after that. So that first fire, you know, they've got to keep that first one from starting, and they've been doing an amazing job. This little community right here in the Emerald Bay area is basically flanked on both sides by flames. Now, the side that we're looking at right here, this is going to be the eastern side. It seems like these fire in this area moving much slower, maybe because of the winds are a little less in this area, but whatever it is, you can really see those embers still continuing to bellow. Those embers are going to be dropping down into areas where there is more brush and some homes. Of course, the fire department sees this as well. As Justin tilts up a little bit, you'll see the west side of the fire, and that flank has basically moved down and basically coming around the other side of this neighborhood. A lot of fuel there. We've watched as that fire is just basically ripped down that hillside at an amazing speed. The helicopter, that's the only real tool they have right now to stop those flames. Folks at home, the armchair firefighters are like, well, why haven't I got firefighters down there on the ground? Stop. There is just no way to stop that right now. So they're using their resources to produce structure protection, make sure that folks in these neighborhoods get out safely, and they are setting up for the potential of what might happen and where these flames will go. That wildland fire, they need a wildland fire response. They're going to need aircraft. Probably the Forest Service is going to join this firefight later on this in the morning. But as far as the homes right now, that's where all their resources are going to be. They're going to be protecting that property. That you're showing us right now, that is going to be something that it would be aerial fights. But right now they have one helicopter. This guy's doing an amazing job up there. And it might be a woman, but whoever is piloting that aircraft is doing an amazing job, doing what they can to keep the ground crews advised of where the fire is moving, the direction that fire is going, and of course doing an occasional water drop, trying to get out a hot spot. But right now, though, this is a very active and very tense situation for all those firefighters who are probably working at 110% down there, keeping those homes safe, trying to keep property safe, trying to stay ahead of where those flames are going. And this firefight is going to go on for quite some time. And again, I just can't give enough props to those guys and the gals on the ground right now, because we have not seen one structure go up this morning.